monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is...
The humiliation lasted only seconds, but inside the royal family, those seconds changed everything. Catherine stood before a watching public, forced into an awkward position that left her visibly isolated, while Camilla remained at the center of a ceremonial moment meant to symbolize unity. William saw it happen. He saw his wife's expression change, and before the day was over, the Prince of Wales had made a decision that would strip Camilla of one of her most visible royal privileges. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine did not protest when Camilla stepped forward and took control of the formal presentation she had been designated to lead at Windsor. She obeyed when the Queen Consort instructed her to move aside before guests, staff, photographers, and dignitaries. The ceremonial coordinating role, a symbolic responsibility allowing Camilla to direct the order in which senior royals appeared during events, carried no constitutional power, but everyone understood its visibility. That was why the slight cut deeply. Catherine held herself together until the public moment ended. Then she entered a corridor, stopped beside a console table, and gripped its edge as William approached. Her voice stayed low, but the emotion beneath it was unmistakable. "I will not be put through that again." The prince said nothing at first. He watched his wife walk away, and something inside him hardened. Remaining silent would not preserve peace. It would say what happened was acceptable. William moved quickly. He summoned 2 senior household officials and told them Camilla would no longer hold the ceremonial coordinating authority that had allowed her to direct Catherine's place during senior royal appearances. The change took effect immediately. There would be no gradual transition, no softened wording, no private compromise. The ceremonial order, meaning the formal written sequence governing who stands where and who leads each part of a royal event, was revised that day. Charles learned only after the alteration had been recorded. William did not seek permission first. He sent the revised order to the king after the decision was entered, transforming a private grievance into an official change. Charles read the line removing Camilla's role once, then again. He set the document down without speaking. The monarch understood exactly why his son had acted, yet Charles knew something others did not. This humiliation had not appeared from nowhere. Camilla and Catherine had collided before, and William's anger had been building long before Windsor. To understand why he acted with such finality, the story must now move into the loyalties, fears, and old tensions binding all 4 together. Behind the titles were 4 people carrying 4 very different fears. Catherine feared losing dignity in a system where every gesture became public judgment. William feared failing to protect the woman who had endured years of scrutiny beside him. Camilla feared becoming increasingly peripheral as the next generation rose. And Charles faced perhaps the cruelest choice of all, defending his wife without alienating the son who would inherit everything he was trying to preserve. Catherine had survived royal pressure by mastering restraint. She rarely answered personal slights, rarely allowed anger to become public, and understood that one careless reaction could dominate headlines for days. That discipline made Windsor hurt more, not less. The humiliation had happened in front of people who understood exactly what it meant, yet responding openly would have made her look difficult rather than wounded. William knew that contradiction well. In a private sitting room afterward, he told her he had seen everything. She asked him not to turn one painful moment into a family war. His reply was quiet. Allowing it to happen again, he warned, could create something worse between them. Camilla saw the same crisis from another direction. Her ceremonial prominence had become proof of how completely she had moved from controversy into the center of royal life. The coordinating authority she had just lost was symbolic, meaning it carried visibility and influence rather than constitutional power. But symbols mattered inside the monarchy. Losing it felt less like an administrative adjustment and more like the first sign that her place could shrink as William and Catherine moved closer to the future. Charles felt the pressure closing around him. Protecting Camilla had shaped much of his adult life, and watching his son challenge her position cut deeply. Yet the king also understood Catherine's importance to what came next. Her dignity was not merely personal anymore. It was tied to public confidence in the next reign. William made clear that he would defend the decision even if Charles objected, leaving father and son on opposite sides of a conflict neither truly wanted. Camilla received the confirmation from an aide in private. The official explained that she would no longer control Catherine's ceremonial placement at future joint appearances involving William. She asked one question: had the prince demanded this himself? The aide hesitated. That silence told her enough. Camilla removed her glasses and placed the revised ceremonial schedule flat before her. She traced the line where her authority had disappeared, then circled it slowly with one finger. "How long has he been planning this?" she asked. The answer was more unsettling than she expected. Catherine had never demanded her removal. William had acted on his own, and he had not been planning it for weeks. He had simply been waiting for one line to be crossed again, because an earlier confrontation had already convinced him that another public insult would force his hand. That forgotten incident would become the hidden trigger behind everything that exploded at Windsor. The Windsor humiliation did not begin at Windsor. Weeks earlier, behind closed doors during preparations for another royal ceremony, Catherine and Camilla had already collided over the same question. Who had the authority to decide where the future queen belonged? What seemed like a minor dispute over protocol became deeply personal. William witnessed enough of it to understand that the problem was no misunderstanding. And one sentence spoken in that rehearsal room became the point of no return. Catherine had arrived at Buckingham Palace, expecting a routine rehearsal for a diplomatic reception. The original arrangement placed her beside William in a senior greeting position, a role that reflected their place as the next generation of the monarchy. A receiving line is simply the ordered sequence in which royals greet official guests, but inside palace life, that order carries unmistakable meaning. Then Camilla intervened. She instructed the ceremonial team to move Catherine farther down the line, away from the position originally assigned to her. Catherine initially assumed the change had been made for practical reasons. She asked quietly whether the schedule had shifted. An official hesitated before explaining that the instruction had come directly from Camilla and had not been requested by Charles or required by protocol. That answer changed the mood immediately. This was no harmless adjustment. Catherine now understood that someone had deliberately chosen to reduce her prominence. Catherine waited until the rehearsal ended before approaching Camilla privately. She did not accuse her. She simply asked whether she had done something wrong. The queen consort answered with chilling calm. Some roles belong to the present, not the future. Catherine understood the meaning at once. It was not merely about where she stood that afternoon. It was a warning about visibility, influence, and how far forward she was permitted to step. William entered moments later and found his wife unusually quiet. Catherine told him exactly what had been said and asked him not to confront Camilla immediately. His frustration was obvious, but he listened. Before leaving, she picked up her name card, placed it back in its original position beside William, and looked at him for a long second. Then she removed it again and followed the revised arrangement. That small act stayed with him because it showed how much she was swallowing to preserve peace. William later spoke privately to Charles. The prince warned that Catherine must never again be deliberately diminished during official duty. The king promised to handle the matter discreetly, but nothing changed. Camilla retained the same ceremonial discretion, and William remembered that failure. So when Windsor repeated the pattern publicly, his restraint disappeared. The warning had already been given. The next conversation would have no aides, no cameras, and no palace buffer, only William, Camilla, and a grievance neither was willing to disguise any longer. William did not raise his voice when he confronted Camilla. He did something more unsettling. He arrived prepared. No aides accompanied him. No secretary sat nearby to soften the exchange. He closed the door and told her precisely why the ceremonial role had been removed. Camilla challenged his authority. William challenged her judgment. And when Catherine's name entered the conversation, years of carefully managed tension between the future king and his stepmother finally broke through the surface. Camilla had expected an argument, but not one this direct. William told her the decision was not about rank, jealousy, or personal preference. It was about what happened at Windsor after the earlier warning at Buckingham Palace. The ceremonial role, meaning the symbolic authority to help direct where senior royals stood and participated during formal events, had given her influence. He believed she had used that influence to place Catherine in a humiliating position twice. Camilla pushed back immediately. She told William that the royal hierarchy could not be rewritten every time Catherine felt uncomfortable. The queen consort insisted that seniority still mattered, and accused him of turning one awkward moment into a public judgment against her dignity. Her frustration sharpened because she believed he was using his position as future king to settle a family dispute. William refused to accept that framing. The prince told her dignity was exactly why he had acted. Catherine had stepped aside without protest because she understood the burden of serving the crown, not because she accepted being diminished. Her silence, he said, had been mistaken for weakness once already. He would not allow it to become permission for another humiliation. Camilla changed direction. She warned him that removing a responsibility attached to the king's wife, without Charles giving explicit approval, placed his father in an impossible position. She expected that argument to slow him down. Instead, William revealed something she had not known. Charles had already been told about the Buckingham Palace rehearsal. The prince had warned him privately after Catherine was moved from the receiving line, and the king had promised to address it. Camilla went still. The realization landed hard. Charles and William had discussed her conduct before Windsor, meaning this confrontation had roots she had never fully understood. Camilla rose from her chair and demanded to know whether William intended to remove responsibilities every time she disagreed with Catherine. He remained seated for one long beat before standing himself. Only when authority is used to humiliate her. Nothing followed that could soften the words. Camilla did not apologize. William did not withdraw them. Their meeting ended without reconciliation, leaving the final decision where it could no longer be avoided with Charles. For the first time, the king could not protect both relationships through silence. The choice had reached his desk, and whichever way he moved would wound someone close to him. Charles had spent years learning how costly divided loyalties could become. Now the division existed inside his own household. On one side stood Camilla, furious that a role attached to her public position had been taken away. On the other stood William, convinced that protecting Catherine was inseparable from protecting the future monarchy. The king could reverse the decision with a few instructions. Instead, he spent the evening studying the ceremonial record, and what he discovered made defending the old arrangement far harder. Charles still possessed the authority to overturn what William had done. The prince had initiated the change within arrangements affecting his own household and Catherine's participation, but the king remained able to restore Camilla's role across joint royal ceremonies. That made the decision intensely personal. He was not choosing between two pieces of paperwork. He was choosing whether to defend his wife or uphold the boundary his son had drawn. Charles read the ceremonial file carefully. It contained notes from the Buckingham Palace rehearsal and the later Windsor reception. A ceremonial file is simply the written record of instructions governing the order and placement of royals during formal events. But these pages now carried something heavier. Catherine's position had been changed twice through personal discretion, not because protocol demanded it. The king could no longer dismiss the pattern as misunderstanding. William met his father privately and refused to retreat. He told Charles he was not asking him to choose between wife and son. He was asking him to stop ceremonial authority from becoming personal leverage. Catherine had obeyed both times because she respected the institution, the prince said, and that respect should not be used against her. Charles listened, wounded by the implication, yet unable to deny the logic. Advisors offered a compromise. Camilla could quietly regain the role while its powers were narrowed. William rejected it immediately. The symbolism would remain untouched, he argued, and Catherine would know that nothing meaningful had changed. Charles understood the danger. A cosmetic solution might protect appearances while deepening the resentment underneath. Charles finally picked up his pen. He approved a revised protocol, placing Catherine and William's ceremonial positions under neutral household officials, rather than Camilla. Protocol, in this context, meant the agreed rules governing how senior royals participate in official events. The decision confirmed her removal. Charles paused with the pen still against the page. Then he asked that Camilla hear the news from him personally, not from staff. He knew what that conversation would cost. The decision was now official. But when Camilla learned that Charles himself had approved it, her anger would become something much more painful, the realization that she had lost this battle inside her own marriage. Camilla had expected resistance from William. What she had not expected was acceptance from Charles. When the king told her the ceremonial change would remain, she understood immediately that this was no temporary punishment designed to cool tempers. Her husband had chosen not to rescue her from the consequences. For the woman who had spent decades fighting for acceptance within the monarchy, the emotional blow was sharper than the role itself, and her response stunned even Charles. Charles delivered the decision himself. He told Camilla that the revised protocol would remain in force, and that neutral ceremonial officers would now determine Catherine's placement during shared appearances. Protocol, in this case, meant the agreed rules governing how senior royals were positioned and involved during official events. The queen consort would keep her rank, her duties, and her place beside the king, but she would no longer control where the Princess of Wales stood. The boundary could not have been clearer. Camilla stared at him before asking the question that mattered most. Did he truly believe she had deliberately humiliated Catherine? Charles did not accuse her of plotting the moment, but his answer still cut deeply. Whatever the intention had been, he said, the result was humiliation. Catherine had been made to step aside publicly, and the damage could not be erased simply by insisting it had been misunderstood. Camilla's frustration hardened. She warned Charles that allowing William's intervention to stand would make her appear weak inside the family and beyond it. The king refused to be pulled into that argument. Protecting appearances, he told her, could not become more important than preventing another rupture between people who would have to serve together for years. Camilla heard the deeper message immediately. He was no longer willing to preserve peace by pretending nothing had happened. Charles then revealed something she had not expected. Catherine had actually asked William not to escalate the dispute. The princess had never demanded Camilla's removal. That truth stripped away the explanation Camilla had been holding on to. This was not Catherine using her husband to punish a rival. William had acted because he believed the line had been crossed. William reinforced that difference in private. The prince instructed his team not to brief against Camilla, not to celebrate the decision, and not to frame her removal as a victory. He had wanted a boundary, not a spectacle. Camilla remained alone after Charles left. She folded the old ceremonial order once, placed it inside a drawer, and shut it harder than she intended. Yet the most important shift was still ahead. Catherine was about to speak directly to the king, without William or Camilla between them, and what she said would transform the entire conflict from a struggle over rank into a question of what kind of monarchy they wanted to become. There were no advisors in the room when Catherine spoke to Charles. No William, no Camilla, no official prepared to translate emotion into careful palace language. The princess did not ask the king to punish anyone, nor did she celebrate the decision already made. Instead, she told him what the humiliation had actually felt like, and why she had remained silent in public. Charles listened without interruption. By the end of their conversation, he understood that the deepest damage had never been ceremonial at all. Catherine had requested the meeting herself because she did not want William's decision mistaken for revenge carried out in her name. She told Charles that royal duty often demanded restraint. Sometimes discomfort had to be absorbed for the sake of stability. But there was a difference between personal sacrifice and being deliberately made smaller so someone else could feel more secure. That distinction mattered, because silence could protect the monarchy only for so long before it began protecting the wrong behavior. Catherine then admitted what Windsor had really done to her. Moving aside had been painful, but that was not the worst part. The humiliation came from knowing that everyone around her understood why she had been displaced. Staff knew, guests knew, William knew, and she knew that if she objected publicly, the story could instantly turn against her. The princess had been trapped between preserving dignity and defending it. Charles felt the weight of those words because he had heard a warning before. William had spoken to him after the Buckingham Palace rehearsal, and the king had chosen discretion over confrontation. He had hoped the tension would fade. Instead, his silence had allowed the same pattern to return in a more public and damaging form. For the first time, he could see that avoiding conflict had not created peace. It had simply delayed the explosion. Catherine surprised him again. She did not ask for Camilla to be pushed aside completely. The princess said she wanted clear boundaries, not permanent exclusion. The queen consort could keep her place, her duties, and her dignity. What she could not keep was the ability to turn private tension into ceremonial power. Charles finally understood William differently. His son had not been trying to seize authority before his time. The prince had acted because he believed Catherine was being asked to endure something Charles had already been warned about. Before Catherine left, the king spoke quietly. "You should never have had to stand there and pretend it did not hurt." She said nothing at first. Then she nodded. That private understanding changed everything. But within days, the decision would move beyond closed doors. One rearranged royal appearance would expose the new order to the entire country and turn a family settlement into a national story. The palace never announced a punishment. It did not need to. At the next major royal ceremony, one detail told the entire story. Catherine walked into the position from which she had previously been moved, while Camilla stood elsewhere, with no authority over the order of presentation. Within minutes, broadcasters were dissecting the arrangement. Newspapers were preparing extraordinary front pages, and crowds outside Windsor were reacting to what looked unmistakably like a transfer of influence inside the monarchy. Catherine entered the formal reception beside William and remained in the senior greeting position that had originally been assigned to her. This time, there was no intervention from Camilla and no last-minute instruction asking the princess to step aside. A household ceremonial officer directed the sequence instead. That role simply meant an official responsible for managing the order of participation during formal royal events, and the change made one thing clear. Personal discretion had been removed from the equation. Catherine understood instantly how closely she was being watched. Every expression could be interpreted as triumph, resentment, or revenge. The princess therefore gave nothing away. She remained composed, spoke warmly to guests, and refused to turn the moment into a public victory. William stayed equally controlled beside her. The prince had fought for the change, but he knew that celebrating it would only deepen the wound inside the family. Camilla performed her remaining duties without incident. She did not challenge the new arrangement, nor did she attempt to reclaim authority. Yet the queen consort briefly looked toward the position she had once helped control, and the emotional cost was impossible to ignore. Her rank remained untouched, but her influence had narrowed in front of everyone. By the following morning, the story had exploded. A major London newspaper carried Catherine beside William across its front page, beneath the headline, "The New Order." The accompanying report focused on Camilla's loss of ceremonial authority and the growing influence of the future king and queen. Later that evening, a primetime royal discussion framed William's intervention as the clearest sign yet that he would act when Catherine's dignity and the stability of the next reign were threatened. Outside Windsor Castle, the public reaction became even more personal. A small crowd began applauding as Catherine arrived. She responded with only a restrained smile and continued forward, refusing to feed the sense of rivalry. The public may have seen a victory. Inside the family, it still felt like a wound. The cameras had delivered their verdict, but headlines could not create reconciliation. One final conversation remained, and its outcome would decide what this crisis truly meant for Catherine, Camilla, William, Charles, and the monarchy itself. In the end, Camilla lost far less than a crown, a title, or a place beside the king. She lost one ceremonial responsibility. Yet that narrow change carried enormous meaning because of what forced it to happen. William had drawn a boundary around Catherine's dignity. Charles had chosen to uphold that boundary. Camilla had been compelled to accept it, and Catherine, after being publicly humiliated, had refused to turn vindication into revenge. That combination transformed a family dispute into a defining royal reckoning. Charles made the final settlement unmistakable. Camilla's former ceremonial coordinating role would not return, and neutral household officials would permanently manage placement involving William and Catherine. The arrangement was simple. Ceremonial coordination meant deciding the order and positioning of senior royals during formal appearances. The queen consort kept her rank and her remaining duties. She was not being driven from royal life. The consequence was deliberately narrow, but the boundary behind it was permanent. Catherine spoke privately with William after the public storm began to settle. She told him she understood why he had intervened, but she wanted one promise. Protecting her could never become an excuse for endless conflict. The prince agreed. He had not acted to punish Camilla, he said. He had acted because silence had already failed once, and he would not watch his wife be diminished again. Charles faced Camilla with equal honesty. The king admitted that he should have responded more firmly after the earlier Buckingham rehearsal, instead of hoping the tension would disappear. She still believed William's reaction had been severe, but she finally accepted that Windsor had crossed a line. That admission did not repair everything. It did something more important. It ended the argument over whether the boundary existed. Camilla later spoke directly to Catherine during a private family gathering. She told the princess she would no longer interfere with her ceremonial placement. Catherine did not celebrate. She simply thanked her. There was no embrace, no dramatic forgiveness, and no attempt to pretend the pain had vanished. But respect had replaced uncertainty. The final proof came at their next shared appearance. Catherine took her assigned place without hesitation. Camilla arrived moments later and moved directly to hers. Their eyes met briefly. Neither woman moved, neither needed to. Everyone understood the new order. William's decision had never truly been about humiliating Camilla in return. It was about ending a cycle in which Catherine's restraint could be mistaken for permission. Charles closed that cycle by supporting the change. Camilla confirmed it by accepting the limit. Catherine gave the resolution dignity by refusing revenge. What began with public humiliation ended with clarity. William emerged more protective, Charles more decisive, Camilla more aware of the limits of influence, and Catherine with her dignity restored. The monarchy survived not because the conflict was ignored, but because boundaries finally replaced bitterness. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.